US President Joe Biden has suggested to Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu that America's support for Israel depends on the action Israel takes to reduce civilian suffering in Gaza. The ultimatum came in the first phone call between the leaders since that Israeli airstrike killed 7 aid workers on Monday. North America correspondent Barbara Miller joins us now from Washington. Barbara, good morning. So what do we know so far about the call between these two leaders?
Well, it sounds like it was a pretty frank and possibly tense call. We hear from the White House that Joe Biden said that the killing of those 7 aid workers, including an Australian, was unacceptable. And Joe Biden told Benjamin Netanyahu that he had to announce and implement concrete steps to ensure the safety of aid workers in Gaza and to alleviate civilian harm and suffering there. Now, a readout of this call says that Joe Biden made clear that U.S. policy with respect to Gaza will be determined by our assessment of Israel's immediate action on these steps. So some really strongly worded language there from the White House, suggesting a significant shift, that it's issuing what sounds like a threat to Israel. Now, it was the job of National Security spokesman John Kirby to kind of decode that in a media briefing, and he was really pressed on what is the White House saying here? Is it saying that it would consider, for example, cutting off the substantial U.S. military aid that flows into Israel? John Kirby would not be drawn on any specifics. He said that the U.S. Still stood by. It was ironclad in its support of Israel's right to defend itself. But the way in which Israel is defending itself against Hamas, he said, has to change. He talked about growing frustration in the White House with the way that Israel is carrying out its war in Gaza. And of course, we heard earlier in the week that Joe Biden was outraged at the killing of these workers from World Central Kitchen. John Kirby was asked again and again as to what exactly might change in terms of policy. He would not go into that, but he did indicate that the U.S. is looking for action in the coming hours and days.
It's not just about the announcement of concrete steps and changes in their policies, but it's the execution of those announcements and those decisions and implementing them. And so we obviously will watch closely and monitor how they do on the commitments that they make. And as I said earlier, if there's no changes to their policy and their approaches, then there's going to have to be changes to ours.
Interesting words there. John Kirby speaking on behalf of the US President. Barb, meanwhile, Israel says it has completed its investigation into the incident. What do we know on that front?
Yeah, really in just a matter of days. Obviously, Israel's saying that it does have a report into the incident. It says that will be handed to the Prime Minister, to the ambassadors of the countries affected, of course, including Australia, and it will then be made public. But we've also been hearing from World Central Kitchen today, and they say that they want an independent probe into the attacks that killed those workers in that convoy. And they say that they have contacted the impacted governments, including Australia, and they're asking for those governments to support them in that call for an independent probe. Haven't yet heard from the Australian government as to what form that contact may have taken or what their response to that demand, that call from World Central Kitchen will be.